years ago she'd seen the same luminous softness dusting the ground, sifting through the leaves of dogwoods and sycamores. Pale, eerie beauty, a late August afternoon before a storm, and she was a child on a wooded street on another island. There, at the shaded edges of New York City, a boy her age was sitting on a tree stump, carving a piece of wood with his pocket knife. Matthew was as fair as she was, and as quiet as breath. In her teens, she'd called him Sunny, and he'd called her Cloudy. But that was sweet talk and just between the two of them. Nowadays, Matthew sent her emails. "I'm going on vacation today. Please keep me in your prayers." She didn't pray, so he'd have to make do with buzzing around the edges of her thoughts. She imagined him as a youth coming back to her this morning in the form of light. Yet he was a shadowed man, and that would be an odd way to make his presence known. It was his dad who tinkered with clocks. On those summer afternoons, as she sat on their back stoop and watched the boy whittle and hum to himself, she'd hear from indoors the wild rattling and bonging of the hours, the tinny noise of minutes and seconds breaking on her ears. The din had unnerved her. Walking alone up Rue Maréchal Foch, Valerie wondered what had become of those clocks. She thought about her husband, Gerard Lefèvre, who was a broadcast journalist and therefore a punctual man. He was 1,000 kilometers away from here, covering a Quebec arts fête in New York City. "Quelque chose de différent," he'd said, "not the news beat." The station already had an arts reporter in the city, but Gerard was political, and his producer hoped for some outspoken views on Quebec's nationhood emerging through its art. Gerard was ambivalent about the assignment, but he liked the idea of working in New York. "Would you like to come?" he'd asked Valerie. "We could visit Andre, go see a show." Andre was their oldest child, and New York City was her hometown. She'd said no to his invitation because she'd made other plans. Gerard traveled so much and to such war-ridden places that she couldn't imagine a New York story that would interest him. "Bring me a picture," she'd said. When her husband would go on assignment, she'd always ask for photos, something to encapsulate the meaning of a place. Crumbling stone roads where the Roman army had marched and conquered Britain, the elegant Mostar Bridge in Herzegovina before it was bombed and destroyed in the 90s. His pictures went beyond his torrent of TV commentary, straight to the haunting of that Roman road by armed ghosts, to the last light that graced the bridge before it fell. He'd find some way of showing her Manhattan that she herself would never have imagined. Last night, Gerard had called her. "I've taken some wonderful pictures," he said. "You see how much I think of you?" And she'd felt a pang of longing. He'd stood with Henri, his cameraman, on the observation deck of the city's highest tower, doing commentary, shooting a backgrounder for the evening news, showing Quebecers the grandeur of a city where their finest artists were about to perform. Monday morning, yesterday, Henri had opened his shutter, panning the horizon, while Gerard, by his own admission, had been caught up in seeing what was beyond sight and beyond speech. As he spoke to her, Valerie had imagined the sun through his eyes, silver, an oyster's pearl, nudging the eastern sky into a pink iridescence, like the inside of a seashell. He would have tasted the salt air of a childhood holiday in Maine when he'd found a beautiful clamshell and put it in his tin bucket, remembering with his tongue, his skin, his sense of smell, how his mother had admired it. Cherishing these memories, he'd always felt at home near water, loving the words of the ancient king who wrote that all rivers run to the sea, and the sea is never full. Far below, the two great tidal estuaries of the